Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to go through a recent online workshop that I presented on the Oriental Planet. I thought I would share it with you. So let's just get over some terminology regarding the Oriental Planet, and it's all to do with East and West. So words that relate to the East are East, Oriental, Eastern, Matutane, and Sunrise. And then words that pertain to the West are Occidental, Western, Vespertine, and Sunset. These are ancient words that have been used for thousands of years, and some are still used by actual astronomers today. So that's why we're using this term. So how to find the Oriental Planet? First up, in a chart, you want to locate the Sun and then move clockwise around the chart to the next planet, which will be the Oriental Planet. So in this example chart, we found the Sun, we move clockwise, and then it's Neptune. Now, your Oriental Planet definition is the planet which rises before the Sun. And it could be close to the Sun or it could be further away from the Sun, but it is still the first planet clockwise from the Sun. So the main principle about the Oriental Planet is that in the dawn chart, it would have been the planet that rose above the horizon on the day you were born before the Sun, and it is visible ahead of the Sun. So the Oriental Planet is never the Sun, it's never the Moon's nodes, the part of fortune, or the vertex. It's never any points in a chart. It's always a planet. So once you've determined what your Oriental Planet is, you're welcome to write it in the comments below. So today I'm going to be talking about two interpretations for the Oriental Planet, and that is as a tribune for your life, and the second one is as a vocational indicator. So when we consider the Oriental Planet as a tribune, so a tribune is something that is announced ahead of time. And when we go back to Julius Caesar, when he returned to Rome, he was heralded and he was announced, Caesar's coming, Caesar's coming. He was proclaimed as a hero, and the perception of the people was then in the nature of this promotion that was given to Caesar. So the tribunes were out in the street. It's even in Shakespeare's play. They're blowing their trumpets and saying, Hail Caesar, he's coming. He wasn't there yet, but they were all lining the streets, having heard about him. And this is the nature of the Oriental Planet. It is your tribune. It is what is said about you before you get there. So the Oriental Planet in your natal chart will be shown in certain ways. It will be through your voicemail message, on any business card you issue. It shows in your resume. It shows in your About Me page. It's what they say before they see you, how you are announced, your reputation that precedes you, and it can even be your ringtones on other people's phones. So for instance, if you have your phone and you've got a difficult mother-in-law and she's going to call you, you may want to have a different ringtone for her, and that would be in the nature of her Oriental Planet. So then the second meaning of the Oriental Planet is as a vocational indicator. So let's just get clear here on astrologically, where do you see jobs, career, and vocations within a chart? Now, your job is generally shown by your sixth house complex. And back in the day, people who had jobs were paid weekly. It is known as your occupation. And these are things like artisans, butchers, baker, and candlesticks makers. These are jobs. And most people will have a job. Some may have a job, a career, and a vocation. Some may just have a job or a career. But when you have this type of work, it is a job. Let's have a look at career. So careers are typically shown by your midheaven and your 10th house complex. Also the Saturn complex in certain charts. And people with careers were typically paid a salary monthly. They were not paid a wage weekly. That's someone who's got a job. So these are professional people, typically doctors, lawyers, and civil engineers, or anyone who's got a degree. That is a career. And you may have a job that you consider your career, and certainly it can be, but astrologically, there are different areas in the chart where you want to look. And if you're dealing with client work, when they're talking to you about their job, they're talking sixth house, and when they're talking about their career, even if it is a job type career, they are then talking about their 10th house. So you do need to listen to how they approach you with their questions. And then the third possibility is your vocation. Now, your vocation is shown by the Oriental Planet complex. So you would take your Oriental Planet, look at its sign, house, essential dignity, aspects to it, position in the chart, and all the rest of it. So you want to pay attention to the full Oriental Planet complex to understand vocation. And this is really, what would you do if you did not have to work? So for those of you who are super wealthy and don't need to have a job or a career, you actually spend your time busying yourself with what interests you. And for the rest of us who work maybe in a job and a career or a combination of two, it can be shown in what you would love to do in your life. This is your vocation. It's also known as a calling. It can show what you are looking for, and you can often see this in areas where you do volunteering activities. Perhaps you're helping children, perhaps you're helping out at a homeless shelter, maybe you're working in a hospital, or you're going in Homes for Humanity or something like that. And of course it does show in your hobbies. What do you do in your spare time is what attracts you, and it can be an indication of what your vocation may be. So that's just showing the difference between jobs, careers and vocations, even though it can blur. But astrologically, when you're looking at the chart, you would do well to analyze these particular 3 different areas separately. So now let's have a look at your clients and the Oriental Planet. So in any chart, the 6th and the 10th houses may be strong, indicating particular careers that they are being attracted to. But the Oriental Planet may suggest another path. Because the 6th and the 10th are generally trying each other, and if you've got planets there reinforcing 6 and 10, there may be a strong focus for the person's career. But the Oriental Planet is something that you would look at if people are becoming dissatisfied with their jobs or careers and saying, is this all there is? What can I do next? So this is why you want to use the Oriental Planet as a consulting astrologer, because you can get a better insight into the chart. So let's have a look at measuring the strength of the Oriental Planet. Now, the Oriental Planet is strong when it's in aspect to the Sun. And when it is, it will get a score of +10 on my scoring system. So if you have an aspect to the Oriental Planet, to the Sun, you will get a score of +10. In this particular chart, Pluto is the Oriental Planet. It's conjoined the Sun. It's getting a +10. It's also strong when it has a greater than 90-degree aspect to the Sun. It will then get a +5. Now, in this particular chart, Uranus is the Oriental Planet, and it is beyond 90 degrees. The gap is super wide there to that planet. It's actually a sesquiquadrat pushing 135 degrees. So this makes Uranus stronger as an Oriental Planet, and therefore it needs more attention. The Oriental Planet is strong when it is dignified, and it will get +10 there. So in this example, Saturn is Oriental, and it's in Aquarius, which it rules. So Saturn will get a +10 on our scoreboard. Next up, the Oriental Planet is strong when it's exalted, but now it's getting a +5. Now, in this particular chart for Barbra Streisand, Venus is the Oriental Planet. It's in Pisces where it's exalted, so it's going to get a score of +5. The Oriental Planet is also strong when it is applying the aspect to the Sun. It will get a +5 for this, and this is actually the Venus there is applying a semi-square aspect to the Sun. You do need to understand aspects applying and separating to appreciate whether this is the case or not, and you would check it perhaps in your aspectarian whether it was applying, is Venus applying to the Sun, and if so, it will get a score of +5. Then it's the Oriental Planet is strong when it is angular, getting a score of +5. So angular planets are generally conjoined one of the angles, and particularly in the angular houses, that would get a +5. So in this case, the Moon is Oriental, and it's going to get a score of +5. It's also strong when it is rising. All planets are pretty strong when they're rising. First house planets, first to rise. So in this case, again, we've got Venus is the Oriental Planet, and it is rising. It's going to get a score of +5. Next up, the Oriental Planet will be strong when it is the chart ruler or the Sun ruler, and here it's going to get +10. So in this particular case, Mars is the Oriental Planet. Mars is in Aries. The Sun is in Aries. So Mars is disposing the Sun, so it is the Sun ruler, and therefore Mars is strong in this position, and it will get +10. The Oriental Planet is also strong when it's a mutual reception to the Sun at +10. And when it is most elevated, it will get a +5. So again, in this chart, we've got Uranus way up high, conjoined the midheaven, most elevated planet, and it's going to get a +5 for position in the chart. It's getting status for position there. Another thing is the Oriental Planet is strong when it's the final dispositor. And in this particular chart of Brunel, Mars in Aries is the final dispositor in this chart. You would have to calculate your dispositor tree to determine this, but in this particular case, we've done all that, and we know that Mars is the final dispositor for him, so it's going to get a +5 as well. So what you would do is add up all of these numbers, and then let's look on the other side. So the Oriental Planet is weaker when it's in detriment. So it's going to get a -10 in this position. And what we have here is Neptune is in Virgo. It's in its detriment. It's the Oriental Planet. It's getting a -10 for that position. The Oriental Planet is also weaker when it's in fall. It will get -5 for that. It is also weaker when it is retrograde. It will get another -5 for that. So even in this example where Uranus is pretty strong because it's wide and high, it's still going to get -5 because it's retrograde. So it's weakening this planet. It's also weaker when it's in a cadent house, where it's going to get a -5. So again, in this particular chart, although Venus is exalted earlier, if you remember, it's in cadent, so we're going to give it a -5 in that position. So then you can decide, you add it all up, all the pluses, all the minuses, and end up with what is your score. Now, there are many ways to work on this, but I've got some ideas here. So the Oriental Planet influence score is that if your score is -20 to 0, then it is a weak Oriental Planet. If it's 5 to 20, it's a moderate Oriental Planet. If it's 25 to 40, it's strong. And if it's 45 to 60 points, it's exceptional. So not all Oriental planets will have great influence within a chart, and that's why you need to assess it as well. It's another way of polishing your readings. Let's have a look at the Sun aspects to the Oriental Planet. So the aspects that I'm using, that I'm referring to here, is the conjunctions, that's 0 degrees orb of 8, oppositions, trines, squares, and sextiles. These are the only ones I'm really considering at this point. So if the Sun is conjoined the Oriental Planet, the sign is reinforced, there is a strong vocational motivation, the emphasis is in line with the self, it functions as one with the Sun, identifies with the vocation, and they are what they do. The Oriental Planet in this position really has little autonomy, and you have to decide, is it a good blend, and you want to consider the nature of the Oriental Planet. So in this particular case, we've got Neptune is Oriental, and we want to decide whether that is in a good position or not. It generally will be, because the sign will be reinforced, but here the sign is split. Neptune's in Pisces, so the Sun is in Eris, so you would want to dismiss that as well. But again, another judgment has to be made. You can clearly see that Neptune is in its own sign and the Sun is in exaltation, so it's probably going to work very well for this person. When the Sun is sextile the Oriental Planet's talents can shine through, and the skills benefit the individual, which is the Sun. The Sun supports the Oriental Planet. There are latent aptitudes within this person, and the vocation may need teasing out. If you're the astrologer, that's your job, and you may need a push to get going. When the Sun is square the Oriental Planet, this planet will be known already because it's a challenging aspect. As you know, we are all very much aware of our squares from day one. Tensions and frustrations through the quadruplicity, so it would either be cardinal, fixed or mutable square, and you would want to look into that. There will be internal dilemmas. This is the nature of the square in any case. And the Oriental Planet may be held back by the self. The self is effectively the Sun in this case, and that challenging aspect will be coming from the Sun. It can bring stress and anxiety and a struggle to reach their full potential, But they push through resistance to succeed. So this sort of person is going to be continuously working towards and fighting for their Oriental planet and what it represents in their chart. And the sun will eventually end up supporting the Oriental planet because that is the nature of the square as well. So the sun trine the Oriental planet. Here the Oriental planet is extremely well placed. It's a favourable outcomes to suit the individual because the individual is the sun, and this planet has risen a trine ahead of the sun on that day. There is ease in vocation expression through the elemental compatibility, because typically it would be a fire, earth, air or water trine, and their identity and vocation are in sync. This may be passive and complacent because trines very frequently can be, and this person may just take the Oriental planet skills for granted and think nothing of it, and they may need a nudge to get going. So again, as their astrologer, it's your job to point this out and focus them or give them some direction on how to use that Oriental planet as best they can. And then when the sun is in opposition to the Oriental planet, there are clearly vocational challenges, and they may flip-flop about the vocation and whether or not they actually want it. Others may influence their choices in this position as well, and there can be some dissatisfaction with the vocation, but if it's overcome, it can produce immense results. This is not a position that you often see, Sun opposition Oriental planet, because it means the Oriental planet is a whole chart ahead of the sun, but it does crop up. So let's now have a look at some of the planets when they are Oriental. First up, we've got the moon. So the moon will always be direct. It is usually waning, and it will be Oriental every single month. So there's a lot of this about, and the moon is Oriental in 10% of all charts. So the moon as tribune, what others say? She can look after that. She usually has a snack in her bag. Let me introduce you to someone who cares. And the moon as a vocational indicator, they consider colleagues to be family. They take a mothering role at work, may work in a home office, works with women and female issues. Their vocation fills a need, contains situations, is accommodating, uses instincts at work, and spoon feeds others. Let's turn our attention now to the inferior planets Mercury and Venus. So let's talk about the percentages of charts here, because Mercury is Oriental in 31% of all charts. So it is the most Oriental planet that there is, and obviously 31 out of 100 people have it. So that's basically 1 in 3 people have Mercury Oriental. And then Venus is Oriental in 20% of charts. So 1 in 5 people have Venus Oriental. And then, of course, as you can quite clearly see, that between the pair of them, these two inferior planets, with 20 and 31, that adds up to 51%. So they are more Oriental than any other planets. And the other planets, therefore, are only Oriental in 49% of all charts. But that doesn't mean to say that if the inferior planets are Oriental, you dismiss them and move to the next one. I disagree with that theory altogether. It's the position in relation to the sun that makes a planet Oriental. So let's have a look at Mercury. When Mercury is Oriental, it's 31% of all charts. It may be direct or retrograde, and the aspects it can make are the conjunction and the semi-sextiles to the sun. This person thinks before acting. With Mercury as tribune, what do others say? He's a hands-on guy. He can speak on my behalf. Let me introduce my agent. So Mercury as a vocational indicator on the Gemini skills theme, this is a focus on words and symbols, communications, editing, routing information, multitasking of all types, dexterity, and being aware of the facts. And then Mercury can also tap into being vocational under its Virgo skills of numbers and counting, analysis, proofreading, data management, patterns, and classifications and categorizations. So these are all skills in the vocational indicator of Mercury. Venus. Venus is Oriental in 20% of all charts. It can be direct or retrograde. The aspects it makes is the conjunction, The semi-sextile and the semi-square to the sun, those are the only aspects it can have with the sun. And Venus Oriental is charming before acting. Venus Oriental in a male chart wants a woman with style, assets, social connections, and who can open doors for him. This is the chart here of Schwarzenegger. So Venus as Tribune. What others say? You like her? She's a looker. Let me introduce a lovely person. And then Venus as vocational indicator. Under the Taurus skills, the focus can be on money, accounts and credits, assets and acquisitions, production, appreciation, and being charming. Venus indicator there under her Libra skills is diplomacy and tact, social skills with finesse, front of house and reception, public relations, give and take, and one-on-one interactions. Let's have a look at Mars. So Mars Oriental only in 10% of charts. So Mars is Oriental every second year, every other year. It can make all the aspects to the sun. It's either direct or retrograde. And this person strategizes before acting. Mars Oriental in a woman's chart, she wants a man who can pave the way, introduce her to many people, and she will stand by her man. Mars' Tribune. What do others say? He can get it started. The hot guy. Let me introduce my go-to guy. And then Mars' vocational indicator, new business areas, independent contractors, has entrepreneurial skills, a director, team leader, startups and IPOs, and will engineer the situation. Jupiter. So Jupiter Oriental is only Oriental in 5% of all charts. It can make all the aspects, is usually direct. This person promotes before acting. So when Jupiter is Tribune, what do others say? He will go far. To be frank, he. Let me introduce a great guy. And then Jupiter as the vocational indicator, this person can see the big picture, uses broad strokes, exploratory abilities and a seeker, broadcast knowledge, a promoter, others follow faithfully, fortunate outcomes, and has great expectations. So that's Jupiter as a vocational indicator. Then we get on to Saturn. Saturn is Oriental in 5% of all charts. It will make all the aspects and is usually direct. This person likes to master things before acting. Saturn as Tribune, what do others say? You can rely on him. He can control it. Let me introduce an old master. Saturn as vocational indicator, in management, reliable, a good backer, has authority, or is an authority. They're always on time and they can produce stuff. Now, the outer planets create a powerful vocational statement because they're just so infrequent. So Uranus Oriental, in only 3% of all charts. It can make all the aspects possible. It's usually direct. Although it was retrograde in 2016, 2018, in part of my research, that was unfolded. And how about this one? Consults an astrologer before acting. Of course, anything that relates to Uranus could be inserted in that position, but we're astrologers, let's face it. So consults an astrologer before acting, and that's the Uranus. So Uranus a Tribune. What do others say? She's a bit odd. Meet the temp. Let me introduce my new friend. And then Uranus as a vocational indicator, dealing in futures, and how technology can help at work. Of course, computers and the internet, seems friendly, social networks, trends and waves, and I'm putting in there ChatGPT. So anyone with Uranus Oriental can be used these sort of vocational things as well. And then we get to Neptune. So Neptune Oriental, 3% of all charts, can be direct or retrograde. It can make all of the aspects. Meditates before acting? Probably. So here we have, what do others say about Neptune as tribune? I got the impression he was here a moment ago. Let me introduce a visionary. So this is Neptune Oriental, and of course the artist, the singer, clearly Tina Turner. And then Neptune as vocational indicator, they are intuitive, they can picture things, solutions may come at night, dreams and visions are very much part of their makeup, adaptable to change, inspirational, and has artistic skill. So again, that's Neptune Oriental. Now let's turn our attention to Pluto. When Pluto is Oriental, this is only in 2% of charts. It can make all the aspects, seduces before acting. Pluto as tribune, what do others say? Be careful of him. He can be exhausting. Let me introduce a powerful person. And then Pluto as the vocational indicator, they are good at transformation, researching, delves, dives and mines, plunders money and sex, flushes out, purges and declutters, exposes and insures, and reclaims and debt collection. So these are all skills with someone who's got Pluto Oriental, as did Freud. So there you have it. I'm going to consider Chiron because I do use Chiron in my practice, and I use Chiron as a matter of course, and that is why I'm considering as the Oriental planet. So when Chiron is Oriental, this is in 3% of charts, and of course it can make all the aspects, can be direct or retrograde, heals themselves before acting. So Chiron as tribune, what do others say? If she was here, she could help. She has a gift for that. Let me introduce my therapist. And Chiron is a vocational indicator. Clearly, teachers, employee trainings, therapists and healers, works at a shelter, a key person, and mentor-protege relationships with this position. Let's go one step further. Let's have a look at Eris. So, when Eris is the Oriental planet, you only want to check for Eris if the sun is actually in Aries, Taurus or Gemini, because generally for everyone who's living today, Eris will be in Aries anyway. But however, you still want to check. So Eris as tribune, what do they say? She's a scrapper. She creates strife and discord. Let me introduce a weekend warrior. There's Eris in Kirsten Dunst's chart. Eris is a vocational indicator, wants to win fair and square, supports those who strive, champions others, and dominates as others crumble in her presence. Quite a powerful position. In this section, we're going to be looking at the Oriental planet in the houses. So, what we're going to consider the ruler of the Oriental planet's house. So that's the ruler of the sign on the cusp of the house. We want to consider which house the Oriental planet rules itself within the chart or houses. And we also want to pay attention to the Oriental planet's sign dispositor, who is disposing the Oriental planet by sign. You want to pay attention to that. So when the Oriental planet is in the first house and it's conjoined the ascendant, this person has access to the qualities of the planet from day one. The image they project is supported by the vocation. They're very keen on self-promotion, gets personal introductions easily, always makes a good impression. If it's square the midheaven, the vocation will give the career a push because it's challenging. The Oriental planet there is maybe challenging the midheaven as well. When the Oriental planet's in the second house, values their first impression, sees their vocation as an asset, they focus on earning, not job satisfaction, and self-esteem is equal to income. When it's trine the midheaven in this position, they easily gain through the career. It's really quite a good place. When the Oriental planet is in the third house, they promote herself in the community, can talk the talk, strong sales abilities and networks well, may have multiple vocations going at the same time, and gets introductions from neighbours and siblings. When the Oriental planet is in the fourth house, Past actions forestall their reputation. Nepotism comes in. The vocation at a foundation perhaps finds the vocation at the end of their life. When it's opposite the midheaven, private-public conflict between the MC and the Oriental Planet, and gets family introductions. Let's have a look at the Oriental Planet in the 5th house. Has dramatic presentation and entrances. Needs space to shine in the vocation. Recreates the self through the vocation. May take on a risky vocation. A creative vocation requires outlets and gets romantic introductions. When the Oriental Planet is in the 6th house, has vocational rituals, is a good worker and doesn't have to be the boss. Clearly a vocation in service or health, works with the 10th and is highly focused, trying the midheaven, works to improve the career, and gets introductions from colleagues and peers. When the Oriental Planet is in the 7th house, single business women use misses to stop being pestered. The Oriental Planet indicates their clients. If the sun is in the 8th, there may be a secret partner behind this person. If it's conjoined the descendant, the vocational business partner is essential. When it's square the midheaven, they will push at the career, and this person will get introductions from their partner. When the Oriental Planet is in the 8th house, has someone else to front for them. Transformation through their vocation, may have secret introductions, inherits the vocation. Others don't know what they do, and they may have a vocation that others do not want. Takes a line of credit for their vocation. The Oriental Planet in the 9th house follows the philosophy of the Oriental Planet. A cosmopolitan vocation, outdoorsy and not necessarily stuck in an office, gets leads from foreign interests, publishing could be the vocation straight up, and gets introductions from college buddies. When the Oriental Planet is in the 10th house, if it's conjoined the midheaven, it totally reinforces the career. The vocation and career are aligned. It is a prestigious vocation, can achieve great honours through the vocation, blows their own trumpet, confident, and gets introductions from those in high places. The Oriental Planet in the 11th house gets introduction by associates and team, gets contacts and leads at the club, a vocation concerned with social causes, a vocation that improves the world for others, and if the sun is in the 12th, may be withdrawn. When the Oriental Planet is in the 12th house, this person will get private introductions. Sacrifice is a hidden strength. The Oriental Planet works behind the scenes for them. There can be a nocturnal vocation. They have custodial abilities. And if this is your client, tell them about the Oriental Planet, because they may not know it and they may not be using it. And if the sun's in the 1st house and the Oriental Planet's in the 12th house, perhaps they do not even use their Oriental Planet at all, because the sun's pretty strong anyway. Okay, so let's just go over some Oriental Planet and using it with some forecasting techniques. So the transiting Oriental Planet, what are you looking for? You're looking for the Oriental Planet returns to the natal. So say for instance you've got Mercury Oriental and you're looking for the actual transiting, which is the one this today. Is it Mercury and is it returning to your natal? Because you would want to pay attention to that as well, because your Oriental Planet will get a return in general. And when the Oriental Planet is the transiting Oriental Planet, so say you've got Mars as the Oriental Planet in your birth chart, and when Mars is the daily Oriental Planet, that's the one that's rising ahead of the sun this morning, it is reinforcing your planet too, because you can tap into those energies. In fact, with a transiting Oriental Planet, when it's Mars, everyone can tap into it, but if you have Mars natally Oriental, it's good as well. So what about solar returns and the Oriental Planet? What are you looking for? When the solar return planet is the same as the natal Oriental Planet, when the solar return planet is conjoined a natal angle when the natal Oriental planet is conjoined a solar return angle and the different solar return Oriental planet each year. So every time you do a solar return chart, you may or may not get a different Oriental planet each year. So when you do, you get an opportunity to tap into that planet. And this is important because solar return charts are based on the sun, and the planet that is Oriental is only Oriental because of its position in relationship to the sun. Okay, the secondary progressed Oriental planet. What are we looking for? When the progressed Oriental planet changes sign or house, you want to pay attention to that. When the progressed Oriental conjoins the sun, because what that means is it's actually going to change position. It's either going to move behind the sun or ahead of the sun. And when the progressed Oriental planet conjoins another planet, because it will then change its position, it being the progressed Oriental planet, and the progressed sun conjoins another planet. Clearly, as the progressed sun moves towards another planet, it will move and take over that position. Therefore, another planet will be in the position of the Oriental planet, because your progressed Oriental planet really could be anything. There are only really a few that it could be in your natal chart, and we'll see a bit more later. But the idea is that you don't just have the one natally. You've got to look at your secondary progressed chart to see what your secondary progressed Oriental planet is and lean into that energy. So what about the solar arc Oriental planet? So solar arc Oriental planet is always the same as the natal Oriental planet. But still, we are looking for direct planets applying hard aspect to the natal Oriental planet. Are any of those planets in your directed chart making hard aspects, squares, or oppositions to your natal Oriental planet? Because it will affect it then. And the directed Oriental planet applying hard aspects to natal planets and angles. So you just want to see whether your directed Oriental planet, as it shifts through the signs, is it making different aspects back into your chart? And this can just give you some clues onto how much effect this planet still has. I'm now just going to guide you through an example chart of a progressed Oriental planet, so we can see what we're actually looking for, because it might just be a little confusing when I've just told it to you and this is the first time you've even heard about it. So we've got an example chart here of Whoopi Goldberg, and in her natal chart the moon is Oriental. Okay. Now, in 1956, the progressed Oriental planet became Mercury. So as she got older and her progressed chart unfolded, and Mercury then took this position. Then in 59, the progressed Oriental planet actually became Saturn as the sun changed position with it. So far we've had Moon, Mercury, Saturn for her. Later on in 65, the progressed Oriental planet reverted back to Mercury. And then in 76, it once again became Saturn. Years on, in 84, the progressed Oriental planet once more became the Moon. And then in 86, it once more reverted back to Saturn as the progressed Moon moved away. In 2011, it once more became the Moon. And then in 2016, the progressed Oriental planet once more became Saturn. So there's definitely a theme here. And then later on, 2017, Mars stepped in, and suddenly Mars is now becoming the Oriental planet through her progress chart shifting. And it will remain so until 2030, when actually it will become Chiron. So as her progressed chart unfolds, and over the years, and sometimes there are big gaps, 10 years, 15 years, the progressed Oriental planet will change position during the course of your life. And typically you would have a progress Oriental planet being the Moon, like every 30 years, but not necessarily starting at age 30. But once you've got the progressed Moon as Oriental planet in, say, year 10, you would then 30 years later get the Moon as well. So the Moon tends to be popping in and out because of the speed with which the progressed Oriental Moon moves through. So this is just some ways that you can, if you're working with clients, you can consider what is their progress Oriental planet today. Is it going to shift in the next couple of years if they're considering changing their job or are dissatisfied with the work they're doing, or they come to you for some vocational guidance? And this is how you use this. So I invite you to extend yourself. First of all, you've got to calculate your Oriental Planet score, which hopefully you did earlier on. You need to list your Oriental Planet's aspects to the other planets because they will indicate types of vocations that are relative to you. It's not necessarily just that you've got Mercury Oriental. You would say, well, what aspects does Mercury have? Because these are indications of the types of vocations that appeal to you. And it may not be the same thing all the time. So say you've got a Venus and a Saturn and a Mars contact to your Mercury. This indicates 3 types of vocations that you could do in the nature of Mercury. You want to decide what vocation do these aspects and planets suggest, which is what I just said. And then you want to explore how your Oriental Planet aligns or not with your 6th and 10th houses. You know, many people just come in and they get a job. They're working down at the burger joint. That's your 6th house. They're striving towards a career in something or other, but their vocation may or may not align with these 2 houses. And if it is different, as an astrologer, it's your job to point it out to your client that there may be another way for them to satisfy their life and find their vocation. And of course, if you've got time, you can extend yourself further. You can track the daily transiting Oriental Planet. And what that really means is that every morning when you wake up, you're looking at the daily chart, you're looking at the dawn chart, as the sun rises, which planet's Oriental, and you can follow it and track it throughout the year, and you see that, oh, it's Mercury for 2 weeks, then we're moving on to Mars, next it's Saturn, and so on, and you get a feel for what it is, and note then the actual energy that everyone has available when we've got transiting Oriental planets in different positions. You also need to be tracking your secondary progressed Oriental Planet, which I spoke about just now, to make sure that you know what it is and which year it's going to change. And you want to be tracking your solar return Oriental Planet to determine whether it's aligning with all the rest of it, or is it offering something else just for that 12-month window that is your solar return chart. So those are 3 great things to extend yourself further with. So thank you so much. I'm Alison Price, and you can contact me at Starzology.